Welcome to this video. In this video we are going to go over R and RStudio, and we're going to compare the two, and hopefully you'll see that there is a big advantage for RStudio over R. Okay, so this is the R GUI. I have a 64-bit because my computer is capable of handling 64 bits, so I certainly installed the 64-bit R package, or R installation, sorry, not package. Package is something different. All right, so this is the console, our console here. And when we start up, it tells us the version. I'm using versions 3.6.3. Now, when you installed recently, you would have come up with version 4.0.1, I believe, or something along those lines, maybe 4. And each one of these releases has a different name for it. They also tell us that this has no warranty, but it's free. And you're welcome to redistribute it under certain conditions, and you need to see the license to make sure that you properly reference the R software and the acknowledge them that they you use their software in your package if you redistribute their package as part of your software. Okay. And it gives you a little bit of information as far as citation, demo, help, help.start, Q for quit. All right. So it gives you some shortcuts or some codes or commands. All right. Now we're at the cursor here, and if I hit enter, then nothing happens, right? There's nothing there. And we rarely work with just the console. I rarely do this in the console unless I'm just doing something temporary and I don't need to save it or want to save it. I'm just maybe exploring or trying to figure something out. So if I were to do create this object A and say it's 1, 2, and 3, so it's a vector, 1, 2, and 3. Notice that even though I typed this first parenthesis, the second parenthesis did not show up here. I have to type it manually. Okay. Now, if I want to do more than one, if I don't want to hit enter yet, and I want another command, I can use, just like in C or C++, I can use the semicolon. So it may be hard on the video to see, but this is a semicolon, not a colon, but a semicolon. Okay, like a comma with a period above it, right? And then I could say B is, and again, I have no shortcut for this assignment. This symbol right here, the back, the less than sign and this dash, these are together. This is saying whatever's to the right gets assigned to the arrow. It looks like an arrow pointing to the left. So whatever's to the right is pointing to the what's to the left of it. So what's to the right is being assigned to object B. So in this case, I'm going to say it's 4, 5, and 6. And so again, if I don't want to hit a new line of code yet, but I want it to be a separate statement, I use the semicolon, and then I can say that C is B minus A. Now, when I hit enter here, all three of these should get run. Let's see. Okay. And fine, but nothing's there, so we don't see anything. Nothing seems to happen. Okay. So now let me print out A. And oh, 1, 2, 3. So it did work. All right. If I print out B, it worked, and here's C. All right. So by doing this, this is not saved anywhere. This is not saved in memory. So if I want this code to be saved somewhere, I need to do something more than this. And so I'm going to come up to File and open a new script. And so this is the way in R that we can type code and then run it later. So right now I'm going to retype, actually I'm going to select, copy and paste this code, Control copy, Control V, and let's say that now I'd like to clean it up. Instead of having a bunch of commands on one line, which is kind of sloppy and not a very good thing to do, I'm going to break this out and put a new command on each line. Okay, so in R, to run a line, I'm going to type this out. It's the Control key plus R, capital, or just R, the R key, I should say R, right? So Control plus R runs that line of code. Now you don't have to select anything. So I can be here, and if I say, or actually I'm going to be there. If I say Control plus R, you can see over in the console, it just ran that line. I do not have to select, and it put me to the start of the next line. So I don't have to select the line to run the line with this. And I want to emphasize that because I see students selecting line and they have trouble and it slows them down. All you have to do is hit Control R. And I can keep on doing Control R. Okay? Now, I can select several lines of code and hit Control R and run all of them at once. And you'll see that I was to here, and it ran all of this. And when I ran C, it printed out C, right? Okay. So I could then save this file, save as, and R script. Now, this puts me way down here. Oh, that didn't go the way I wanted to. But this directory is way down. You can see it, C, program files, R something, bin, x64. So that is what we call the working directory. It's by default where this version of R is unless we tell it otherwise. Okay. And so if I wanted to open a file and it's not in that directory, I have to specify the file name. Okay. And I realized that something I had saved is no longer saved. So I'm going to open a file, alpha amylase, and I'm going to do a read.csv, and I need to put, and I'm going to say, let's see, string as factor equals false. Okay, and now I'm going to type C. Let's see. And I have to, instead of using the backslash, I have to use a /. That's one of the quirks of R. And this is true whether you use R or RStudio. So we're going to use the same, if we want to type something, we'll type it the same way if we're using the commands. In R versus RStudio, documents, _5 stat 899 / patterned alternatives / alpha _amylase .csv. Okay, so I'm going to open this up some and make it, I can pull this back a little bit and make this a little bit bigger, maybe, so I can see it all at once. Scroll, okay, almost all of it. All right, so let's see if I can Control R, if I can run that. Oh, there's an error. Let's see, unused argument, string as factor. So I need some help. I want question mark read.csv. Well, oh, because I typed a comma instead of a period. Okay, so it starts help and read.csv. And so I don't need the string as factor. I'm thinking of another thing here. Okay, so read.csv is got sub quote. All right, so I can get rid of the string as factor here. Okay. Oops. Oh yeah, Control R. And now I can do one of two things. I could just select this. If I only want to run, if I want to print out alpha amylase, since I've assigned it now, I can just select that name if I don't want to type it out. and I can hit Control Run and it will print out. Or I can copy this and paste it and then run this for it to run. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. So as you can see, I did it twice. The first time by selecting the name, the second time by typing out the name. And so I've got these columns: subject, I, J, day, time, activity. They're all numeric. I can make these factors. So I could actually, with this data set, I could actually create this. Now, let's look at some things that we did in data camp. Let's do str, the structure of alpha underscore MLAs, and see what it tells us. Okay, it's a data frame. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. And we have integer, 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 and numeric. Okay, for activity, because we've got decimals here. So everything else is numeric, or is an integer, and those are numeric unless we tell it something else, and we haven't. Okay, so I can save this script as a file, and that's exactly what we do in RStudio, so there's no difference there. I can, let's see, where is it? I can save script, and when I'm looking for a command, I don't use this very much. No, okay. All right. So I can, if I wanted to save this, when I click exit, it's going to ask me, do I save the workspace image? That is not the file. That is what's in memory here, the workspace image. If you say yes, then next time you open R, everything that we have in memory right now will be there again. Now that's pretty handy, but we don't want to save it as the default. Okay, so I'm going to say cancel so that I'm not exiting. All right. And what we have is, where is it? So we have load package. I'm looking for, where is the, what was I looking? I saw something earlier. Oh, here we go. I had to click over here to get it. Here's a place to load workspace. Okay, so if I want to see where I can edit, save workspace. Here's save workspace. So if I wanted to save this, then I could save it as something. Don't save it as .rdata. Save it as something else, like I'm going to save it as temp.rdata. Okay, not just .rdata. That is the default. .rdata is the default with nothing in front of it. So if you want to do this, name it something, then .rdata. Okay. And then the next time, if you want to load it, you can go and load it. But if you save it as just .rdata, and that's what would have happened if we had exited out here and said yes, it would have saved it over top of our workspace. And that's a bad thing, because then every time you open up R, whether you want it or not, you're going to get those objects in your memory, and that can mess you up. So you want to be able to specify when you load a workspace. You want to actually go out and load it manually, not it automatically happen. That's a bad thing. Okay, so I'm going to cancel again. All right, we have no need to save this workspace, but that's how you would do it. And then when you come back in, you could load a workspace. And again, it was going to take you to this default directory, so that's the best place to have it. Okay, all right. So that's R. Now, what's the difference with RStudio? Well, here's RStudio, and I'm going to go ahead and open a new file. But notice that I have, now over in R, if I want to, I have a source R code. That's if you're creating R packages. New script, and that's it, besides loading workspace or histories or what have you. Okay. But in RStudio, when I say new file, I've got all these different, I've got a notebook, a script, a markdown, some shiny apps, Plumber API, all these other things that we could load, Python script, JavaScript files, CSS files, HTML files, markdown files. So we have all these things. So just the basic R script is what I'm going to open now. And again, I can save time and copy, paste, maybe. Yeah, oh, no, it didn't do it. Okay, let's see. So, oh, that's what happened. Need to magnify. Okay, so I'm going to copy, come to RStudio, and I'm going to paste. There we go. Now, and here I'm going to pull, whoops, this over so we can see. All right. If we need to, we can do that. All right. So I can do the same thing here. Now, instead of using Control plus R, we're going to use Control plus Enter. Okay? Oops, that's not how you spell Enter. That is. Okay? So Control plus the Enter key. That will run a line of code. Or again, we can select several lines of code and run them. So Control Enter. So now they've all been run, and we have all this output, and our console is down here. Notice that it has the same exact information here as we had in R. If I scroll up, loading it. Okay, so everything is the same. So nothing's really different yet. But notice this panel over here that says environment. So I'm going to maximize this. It says environment. I have A, B, and C. It tells me what it is. It's a numerical. That it's A is a vector. It's numeric vector with 1 to 3. So it has 3. It tells me the values. Now, depending on where you have this, you may or may not be able to see all the values or how big it is, right? And then up here it has something data, alpha amylase. And so that's our data frame. And if I click this arrow right here, it tells me, it gives me the information. You know, that 112 observations of 6 variables, subject, int, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10, you know. I is an integer, so subject is an integer, I is an integer, j is an integer, day is an integer, time is an integer, and activity is numeric, and it gives you values, okay? So that's very handy. And then down here we have this panel, and we can look at packages. This is nice to see which packages are loaded, and if we want to load a package, let's load one that's not going to create a big issue, hopefully. Let's find, let's see, ggplot2, okay? So that's all it is to load a package. Is that easy? To unload it is as easy as unclicking it. And they're in order. Now to install packages, it's easy here to go up to Tools, Install Packages, and then start typing the name. If you know the name, then you can start typing it and they all show up, okay? And if it doesn't show up, keep on typing and check your spelling. And then hit Enter. All right, it's very easy. Help is very nice. So if I data dot, and what shows up in here as suggestions is determined by what packages are loaded. Okay, so if you're looking for something in a package that you haven't loaded, it's not going to be here. Okay, but let's say data frame, and so that's what I had before. So let's say so vector, and it brings you, it tells you, it brings up all the information on vectors. Instead of taking us to the web, it does it right inside of RStudio. Okay, so it tells us everything, gives us some examples down here that we could run if we wanted to. So the help files are right here. That's very handy. There's a tutorial here. If we had plotted anything, the plots would show up here. Files, will show that we've used, will show up here. Okay, so you can see my history of files that I've worked in. And the viewer, sometimes we print something and it shows up in the viewer here. We'll talk about all those at some point this semester. Okay, and now this alpha amylase. Now clicking on the blue arrow or the blue circle with a white arrow, that expanded and gave me information. But if I move over and click on the object itself, it opens it up in another tab. Here is my script. Here is the object, the data frame. And so I can scroll through this and see my values as I need to. I can sort by them too. If I wanted to sort from smallest to largest on activity, I could do that. Okay, so here it is. Subject, I could do it by subject. Okay, and then my row is over here, and that's the way I wanted it for now. Okay, so this is very handy, and then we can close this out. So RStudio really gives us a lot of extra flexibility. Now I loaded alpha amylase using this. Now I'm going to import something from Excel. Let's say I could import it from status SAS SPSS. Now most of the time we want to use a command like this in the code. That way if you give me code, I don't want to have to go, I may not have the data set on my computer, so you're going to have to tell me where it is, let's say. Okay, or you may not want to have to go over here and import the data every time and go find it. Okay, so let's browse, and I happen to know where this is because I went here earlier. And here's the Excel file. Now if I choose the CSV file, it's going to give me an error because it's not Excel. So I can open any of these Excel files. Okay. And it previews it for me. And if I say import, it's going to overwrite what I had before, alpha amylase. All right, unless I change the name down here. I'm going to say 1 and import. And now I have, you'll notice that this one is capitalized. I didn't have to say the 1 because I hadn't capitalized this first one. So the second one was capitalized. Alpha amylase 1 is going to be the same as the other. It's just, it's now, we've got 2 objects with the same in there. Now I don't need 2 objects, so what I can say is I can say RM for remove. Notice that when I type the first parentheses now, the second one shows up as well. That's one of the nice advantages of RStudio. And as I start typing, it starts giving me hints of the objects that I already have or functions that are loaded. Okay, so it's very nice and handy as I'm typing. Okay, so RM this and Control Enter, and now you'll see that it has left the environment. It's no longer here. Okay, okay. So we can remember that just me typing something. Oh, by the way, there's also a shortcut for that assignment. Z, what I hit was Alt and the negative sign or the minus sign that's beside the equal sign, between the 0 and the equal sign. Okay, up above, so you've got the numbers one on your keyboard, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. The next key is the negative sign or the minus key. And so I hold down Alt, A-L-T, and that key, and it gives me the assignment. Very nice, so that it's only 1 keystroke instead of 2 now. Okay, instead of having to print this and then this, and I have to hold down the Shift key to get the less than sign. So this does it and gives me nice spacing, unlike up here where I had to type it in, right? You'll notice it leaves a space, and so it's going to look a lot nicer. See a vector of, let's do a sequence from 1 to 10. There we go. Now, Z is not over here in my memory. Just because I've typed it into the script file doesn't mean anything if it's not over here. So in order to create it, I have to run this code. And now, here it is. Okay? So you see that Z was run. When I hit Control Enter, when I was somewhere on this line, hit Control Enter, this showed up down here, and now Z is showed up over here. Okay? All right. So the help file is very, very nice, and it just brings everything together. We can import data sets from very quickly, easily, if we want to. We can have the same functionality that we have in the R console, the R GUI, if you will, but we have a lot of other things that we can do as well. There's another file type called R Markdown, and you'll notice it asked me for this, and what's the title, and I'm going to say example 1. Author, my name, and what type of file output do I want? PDF. That's nice. I could do a presentation like slides. I could do a Shiny app, something called a Shiny app, or create something from a template that's provided here. But I'm going to say that this is a PDF, and if I say OK, then it creates this, and here's the title. And you'll notice that these are untitled, right? So Untitled 1, Untitled 2. If I want to, I can save them. Here's a save button, right? And here, for this one, something called knit. I can knit this to PDF, and it's going to create a PDF document. And what's really interesting is you see these gray areas here. That is the code. And then I have text that's not in what we call a chunk. This is a chunk of code, and it's grayed out to show you that it's code. And then the white is text. Okay. Now, if I were to just write, this is a program in R, and I hit Control Enter, it gives me an error down here. It does not like this. It doesn't know what I'm doing. I have to comment this out. I use a pound key, and you'll see that this makes the text a comment. And if I run this, nothing happens. So it will print it out, but it doesn't do anything. Nothing shows up over here because it's just a comment. Okay? And so in this R Markdown, I have spaces for text. And this is even a hyperlink. Okay? And so, and I have chunks for code. So I can mix this, and when I knit it together as a PDF, let's see, so before I can do that, I have to save this, so I won't. And it tells you about it too, in this default stuff, so you can get rid of all this stuff and put your own text and what have you in here. But it creates a PDF file with both verbiage where we're talking, like text, and the code. And if we want, see here it says echo equals false. That will mean that we don't want this code to show up in our document. Otherwise, echo equals true is the default. So this code here would actually show up grayed out in our PDF file. It's very neat, powerful, and handy option that we have here. So, and we'll learn how to do that later this semester. Okay, well, I think this video is running a little too long, but I hope that you can see that there's some advantage to using RStudio over the R GUI, and so that's why we did it. And I want to point out there's a Save Workspace As button here. And so again, I've got all this stuff. There is code that I use that takes 45 minutes to run. So instead of spending 45 minutes every time I load up the code, I've saved the workspace. And so I can just load that workspace every time I load that file, and then I can start using from a certain point, in the code. I can start from there using everything, so that I don't have to keep running this and waiting 45 minutes for the code to run. All right. Okay, we will come back to this in a later video. We'll do some more examples. So in the next video, we're going to review some of the things we've learned on DataCamp, some of the basic functions and objects, and this way I will have you create these files that you're going to turn in. In this case, your file should have this in there. So everything I have typed here, you should have in your file that you upload for this video. Okay, so I can move this so you can see everything. You can always pause the video, and in fact, I'm going to add one more thing. This will be, let's see, code file 1. Let's do that. All right. So I hope this has been helpful, informative. We'll see you next time.